All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining today. This is Dan Lyons at the National Weather Service in Raleigh with our Monday briefing, which is going to feature yet again some very quiet weather across central North Carolina. So if you're a fan of quiet weather, this is going to be a briefing tailor-made for you, that's for sure. The theme of this briefing is certainly going to be high pressure across the area. You can see in the upper left map on the screen, we've got a pretty big area of high pressure across a good portion of the East Coast. That really hasn't moved much over the past several days, and it's going to remain in place through at least Wednesday, which is what you can see in the upper right map there. Now, we will have temperatures warming up steadily as we progress through the week. We'll be looking at highs today in the lower 70s. By the time we get to Wednesday and even Thursday, look for upper 70s and even some lower 80s starting to sneak back into the forecast. By the time we get to Friday, though, we will see a little bit of a cool down, and that's going to be because a cold front slides through the area. No chance of precip with that really whatsoever. Really not going to be a whole lot of moisture, maybe a little increase in cloud cover, but no chance of showers, and certainly no chance of thunderstorms or anything like that with that front. And then we're going to warm back up briefly on Saturday before an even stronger cold front comes through for Sunday into early next week, which is what you can see in the lower right-hand corner there. But what you don't really see on any of these maps here, any shadings of green or anything of that nature, again, kind of a quiet, dry forecast in the cards for the next 7 days across the region. To further that point, let's take a look at the precipitation forecasts. The maps are not totally white, so there will be some precip around, but it's certainly not going to be across central North Carolina, that's for sure. You look at, today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, unless you're off the coast, you've got to get into northern Virginia before you see any accumulated precip at any point through the week here. And even those values are pretty light, a hundredth or 200ths of an inch. So dry continues to be the theme. No chance of rain across the area. Not surprisingly, with no rain, we've got no threat of flash flooding whatsoever. So that is certainly some good news. And with no rain or storms across the area, no threat of severe weather. So the good news keeps piling up here. Our experimental graphical hazardous weather outlook is clean across the board all the way from today through Sunday coming up. I will talk about fog potential here in a minute once we get to the tail end of the briefing. But in terms of big noteworthy weather hazards, the board is clean. So good news there. Let's talk tropics because this is still the tropical season for the Atlantic Basin. And there is one active storm out there at the moment, and that is Tropical Storm Oscar. It's currently over Cuba. This morning, it made landfall. The overall track for that storm, it is going to make a turn to the north, okay, but it will remain off the coast of the U.S., not going to be a threat to affect the mainland U.S., and certainly no threat across North Carolina. So just be aware that that is out there. It may be in the news, you may hear a little bit about it, but it is not going to be a threat for the mainland U.S. And then taking a bigger, wider picture, looking all the way back to the west coast of Africa, there's no waves out there that are being monitored for development, no real other areas of focus here whatsoever. So the tropics outside of Oscar are quiet. Let's talk about a little bit more long-term here. We talked about what's going to happen this week with high pressure across the area and pretty much dry conditions. When we get out to next week, it looks like temperatures will start to rise. Now, it's not going to, temperatures are not going to shoot back up into the 80s or 90s or anything like that, but the odds are pretty tilted, 60 to 70% chance. The temperatures that we're going to see across the area next week are going to be above normal. Now, for reference, the normals are on the bottom. Normals this time of year, generally around 70, maybe mid 70s, depending on where you're at. So the odds are tilted that, we should at least see those type of temperatures across the area, if not a little bit warmer. And sticking with the theme of quiet weather without any precipitation, the odds are tilted in favor of maybe a little bit below normal for precipitation chances. It looks like those big areas of high pressure are going to remain in control into next week as well. So that's kind of what's driving these patterns that you see on the screen here. So it would seem that, at least for the foreseeable future, more sun than clouds, above normal temperatures, dry weather. That's going to be the continued theme probably through the end of October across central North Carolina. All right, let's bring it home here. Summarizing, very quiet weather. Temps are going to warm up at least through Wednesday, Thursday. We'll get a brief drop on Friday after a cold front moves through. Saturday, we warm back up just a little bit, and then we drop back off actually quite a bit. By the time we get to Sunday, we may struggle to see temperatures get out of the 60s across the area on Sunday. That will be short-lived. By the time we get to this time next week, next Monday, next Tuesday, we'll be back kind of right where we should be, or in the lower 70s. I did promise I would mention fog. The past few mornings, there have been some very patchy areas of fog, mainly across the eastern part of North Carolina, maybe across the coastal plain, Interstate 95, areas like that. There's a decent chance that that could happen again once we get to the middle of the week. There could be a little bit late tonight into tomorrow. Wednesday morning, it looks like there could be some fog potential. Sometimes this stuff is hard to pin down several days in advance. But don't be surprised if you're located in the eastern part of the state and you see a little bit of morning fog developing across some portions of the area. But beyond that, that's about the only hazards we have to talk about over the next 7 days.